Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your Emotional Support Podcast, the podcast where we talk about self-worth, emotional wellness, relationships, and all the messy little human experiences in between. Today, we're talking about something that almost all of us do, and honestly, it's something our brains are kind of wired to do. We're talking about why our brains tend to focus on the negative. Welcome back. I'm your host, Noelle Rizzio. So why do our brains tend to dwell on the negative? Why do we replay the embarrassing moment, the embarrassing comment we made 3 years ago at Target? Why do we assume someone is mad at us because they ended a text with K? Why can we receive 10 compliments and 1 criticism and somehow only remember that criticism? And most importantly, today we're discussing how this habit affects our self-worth and our relationships with other people. Because if we're constantly assuming the worst about ourselves, eventually we start assuming the worst about how other people see us too. And that can become exhausting. So if your brain tends to act like a dramatic little narrator sometimes, this episode is for you. So recently I had this experience, and this is where I came up with the idea for this podcast. As a lot of you know, I left my job that I had had for 17 years. I left that job last June, and I've been working on my own from home since then. And life gets crazy and busy, and it dawned on me that I hadn't talked to my friends in like 3 months. And at first I just kind of noticed it. Oh yeah, and then I thought, they must be busy. I know I'm busy. Life happens. And then the longer that it got from, the last time we talked, the more my brain started putting these ideas in my head. Well, they must be mad at me. I must have done something, or they've forgotten about me, or, they're resentful of me because I left. All these things my brain started telling me, and I really started like freaking out and getting really depressed and upset about it. And then on Mother's Day, which was just this past Sunday, they all reached out and wished me a happy Mother's Day, which, it was a group text, so we were all wishing each other a happy Mother's Day. And I just said, I miss you guys so much. And it was just that. It took just me saying that for them to be like, we miss you so much too. Sorry it's been so long. Like, let's get together soon. So it just took opening that line of communication. But my brain was preventing me from doing that because it was focusing on all these negative ideas that I didn't even know were true or not. So let's really talk about this. Our brains are not naturally designed to make us happy. I wish they were, but they're designed to keep us alive. And historically, humans survived by noticing danger, problems, rejection, threats. Thousands of years ago, if your brain ignored danger, that was a big problem. So our brains developed something called negativity bias. And what this means is that the negative experiences tend to stick harder and louder than the positive ones. A compliment might slide right off your brain like a fried egg on a nonstick pan. But when an awkward interaction from 2017, your brain stores that in your brain forever. And unfortunately, our brains often don't distinguish between physical danger and emotional discomfort. So rejection, embarrassment, criticism, awkwardness, conflict, or feeling excluded can all feel deeply threatening internally. Sorry, I'm having speaking issues today, apparently. And this is why so many people walk around constantly scanning for signs that someone is upset with them. They said the wrong thing. They're not enough. They're failing. They're secretly unlikable, even when there's little actual evidence of that. One thing I see often, both professionally and personally, is how quickly people turn uncertainty into self-blame. Someone doesn't respond to a text. Oh my gosh, I probably annoyed them. My friend seems quieter than normal. They must be mad at me. A coworker gives brief feedback. I'm terrible at my job. Meanwhile, the other person is literally just tired, busy, overstimulated, trying to survive, or wondering why you are mad at them. And that's the wild thing. Many of us are silently assuming the worst about ourselves while simultaneously fearing everyone else is thinking the worst about us too. It becomes this invisible emotional hall of mirrors. And over time, this can really impact our self-worth. Because if your inner dialogue is constantly thinking, I'm awkward, I'm annoying, I'm failing, people don't really like me, I'm always messing things up, your nervous system starts treating those thoughts like facts, even though thoughts are not automatically truths. They're interpretations. And sometimes they are deeply biased interpretations. Our brains are storytellers, but not always accurate storytellers. So this also affects our relationships in huge ways, because when we assume negative intentions from other people, we often start reacting to stories instead of reality. Maybe someone takes longer to reply and we emotionally withdraw. Maybe we over apologize constantly. Maybe we become defensive. Maybe we're seeking constant reassurance. Maybe we avoid vulnerability altogether because we assume that rejection is coming anyway. And unfortunately, when insecurity drives these relationships, it only creates distance that wasn't even there to begin with. Sometimes the fear of disconnection actually creates the disconnection. I'm going to say that again. One, because it's important, and two, because I messed it up. Sometimes the fear of disconnection actually creates the disconnection. I also think it's important to say this. Having these thoughts does not make you weak, dramatic, needy, or broken. It makes you human. Especially if you grew up in environments where you felt criticized, rejected, emotionally unsafe, or like love and approval had to be earned. Your brain may have learned to stay hyper alert to that emotional danger, and that makes sense. But awareness is important because survival strategies that protect us emotionally at one point can later start hurting our self-worth and our relationships. So let's dive into some ways to combat this, because thankfully, while we cannot completely stop negative thoughts from appearing, we can change how much authority we give them. So tip number 1, start questioning the story. I tell my clients this all the time. Find evidence. When your brain jumps to a negative assumption, pause and ask, what actual evidence do I have for this? Not feelings, evidence. Because feelings are real, but they're not always reliable indicators of reality. For example, I feel like everyone thinks I'm annoying. Okay, what evidence supports that? And what evidence might contradict it? Often you'll realize that your brain filled in a lot of blanks all on its own. Tip number 2, and I tell my clients this also, stop mind reading. Don't assume to know what other people are thinking, feeling, or what their intentions are. A lot of us act like unpaid detectives in our relationships. We analyze tone, punctuation, facial expressions, response times. Meanwhile, we have absolutely no confirmed information. Most people are thinking about themselves far more than they are analyzing you. And honestly, that is really freeing to think about. Number 3, practice speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. If your best friend said, I made one awkward comment, everyone probably hates me, you probably wouldn't say, correct, you should disappear forever. You would offer perspective and compassion. Try practicing that same tone with yourself. Not fake positivity, not toxic positivity, just fairness. Tip number 4, notice when your brain filters out positives. Some people collect evidence against themselves all day long while ignoring evidence that they are loved, capable, funny, kind, or valued. So I want you to start intentionally noticing positive feedback instead of instantly dismissing it. When someone compliments you, resist the urge to argue with it internally. Just let it exist. That alone can feel weirdly difficult at first, but once you do it, you will get used to it. Tip number 5, communicate instead of assuming. Healthy relationships improve when we replace those assumptions with communication. Instead of silently spiraling, say, "Hey, you seem a little quiet today. Everything okay?" Simple, direct, grounded in reality. Not every feeling requires an investigation, but clarity is often healthier than catastrophizing. Oh my gosh, I'm really having issues today. I apologize. And my dog's barking in the background, which is stressing me out. Tip number 6, remember that self-worth and perfection are not the same. A lot of people subconsciously believe if I could just stop messing up, then I'd feel worthy. But self-worth cannot depend on flawless performance because humans are fundamentally imperfect. You are allowed to be awkward sometimes. I love awkward people. You are allowed to be sensitive sometimes. You are absolutely allowed to be wrong sometimes. And you are allowed to be still learning sometimes. That does not reduce your value. I think one of the healthiest things that we can do is learn to hold our thoughts a little more loosely. Not every thought deserves a courtroom trial. Not every insecurity deserves a microphone. Sometimes your brain is just tired or anxious or overstimulated or pulling from old experiences that no longer reflect your current reality. And if that is true, I did an episode a couple weeks ago on spring cleaning your brain. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is say, maybe this thought isn't the full truth. So before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this. Thank you for being patient with my errors in speaking and my dog barking in the background. But also, you do not have to believe every negative thing your brain says about you. You are more than your worst moment. You are more than your insecurities, more than your overthinking, more than 1 or 2 awkward interactions. And chances are people are not sitting around scrutinizing you nearly as much as your brain tells you they are. Most people are just trying to feel loved, accepted, and enough too. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love if you shared it with a friend, posted it on social media, or left a review. It really helps more people find the podcast. And as always, I'm so glad you're here. Take care of yourself, be gentle with your mind, and remember, your worth was never meant to be determined by your inner critic. I will see you next time.